Welcome back to the Cordios Tribe. Today I'm going to be doing a review on a video that another YouTuber did about men and suicide. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and play the video. We'll talk about it after.
I feel hopeless. I feel worried.
I feel empty.
I feel sad.
I feel lost.
I feel like I'm in a pit, a dark pit.
I feel very afraid.
I feel lonely all the time. I feel isolated.
I feel like crying.
They should be strong, the strong and silent type. They should be rational. They don't feel weak.
They don't feel lonely.
Men don't feel lonely.
They don't feel pain.
They don't feel fear. They don't feel anxious or depressed.
They don't feel sad.
They don't feel scared.
They don't feel.
Of course we feel. We're human.
It's time we start allowing men to feel comfortable expressing and embracing the way that they feel.
About 2.5 years ago, in the space of about 6 months, I lost my job that I loved and gave me a huge amount of stability. I lost my girlfriend. She dumped me, who I loved a great deal, and I had no income. I was very scared and I was worried. And I also lost my agent for acting, so I had no auditions, no work coming through, and I felt very low, very sad, very anxious, very depressed, and I was terrified nothing would ever get better. And then as time went on, I healed. I got a new job, which was the best possible thing I could have done. I started doing meditation. I started doing more exercise, and I started dating again and meeting other people when I was ready. And then I got a new agent and I started making my own work.
So before we get into this, I do want to bring up a few key points. One is that I feel horrible for men that are going through this. If anybody's going through this, there should be a suicide hotline down underneath this video. They usually will piggyback that on top of my videos off of the algorithm. So first, I just want to say, if you're having an issue with that, please give somebody a call or talk to somebody about that. Also, I do want to say that here's my dilemma on this. Is that back in the 1920s, 1930s, 1800s, going back about 100 years or more, we had pubs and we had cigar shops and we had wine tasting places and whiskey places and speakeasies where men would go to sit down and speak to each other about the things that are going on in their own lives. Where I feel like this is coming from, this raise in suicides, is I think it's a multifaceted problem. So the first problem is that I feel like men don't have those places anymore. We don't have those men only spaces. And I know people in the comments are probably going to get mad about this, but those were the places where we spoke about man stuff, right? If my son is having a problem, or somebody that I know who's a friend of mine, when I go and hang out with him to go for a hike or whatever, that's when we talk about the issues that we're having in our everyday lives, whether it's with our family. He may have a problem with somebody in his family, his wife, though that's the time to talk about those kinds of things. So these spaces were taken away from men. They used to be men only spaces. What ended up happening is that when the feminist movement started to pick up, we started to lose those spaces for men to be able to go and talk to other men about these issues. So because those places have been canceled or taken away from us, we don't have those places to decompress anymore. Right? Your wife or your loved one, it's okay to go and talk to your wife about these things to a point. But there are other things that you can't talk about that are men's issues that you should be going and talking to your friends about, or, military buddies, or, workout buddies, or whatever. Those are the kinds of places to go talk about these types of things. The other issue is that things like, and I went over this in another video too, where I was talking about, boys boxing and all these sports that we used to have in school, shooting ranges and all of these things that we had for like boys to be able to go and blow off some steam. A lot of those have been taken out of schools. And when the feminism movement took over, they were trying to push girls and women into these social areas or these sports that men do. And because of that, we are having a problem with boys not being able to talk to other boys or have that community between boys. The same community that girls have when they go to school, right? They have their own community. Girls go and they hang out. If you ever look at like recess and you look at like the playground outside, girls will go over in one corner and they go hang out, and boys will go in another corner and they'll go hang out. Like, oh, well, you gotta involve these girls in these sports, and you gotta involve girls in Boy Scouts, and they started to wipe the lines between gender sports or gender classes to where they could have their own space and talk to each other. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that should be to me, that's a natural thing that comes with us being human. Girls want to hang out with girls, boys want to hang out with boys, and they talk to each other about their own stuff. Boys talk about football and soccer and, maybe fighting and boxing, and then girls talk about their own stuff on their side. I understand that there is a rise in suicide, and what this lady is talking, and this isn't a dig at the lady that's talking in the video, but in the video, the lady's like, they need to talk. They should go and they should talk. Yes, I agree. But how can these places be taken away from us, right? These spaces where men used to go and talk and they used to confide in each other. You took those spaces away, not her specifically, but they took those spaces away from us. So then what are men supposed to do when they have nowhere to go to sit down and talk about their issues and what's going on in their lives? They don't have that anymore. Sure, you could call your buddy on the phone, you could text, you can go for a walk and go for a hike. But these were very like not secret places, but they were very private places that you knew that you were away from everybody, where you could close the door and anything that you talk about in that room stays in that room, right? And so we have lost those spaces. So because we've lost those spaces, now these men have nobody to talk to, or it's not as private as it used to be before. And where do you decompress at? We have, in the last 100 years, okay, when we had pubs and we had all of those places, we didn't have this high suicide rate. We didn't. You can look at the numbers. The suicide rate was not like that back then. Were there suicides? Absolutely. But they were not high like they are now. Okay. So now look at where we are now. You've taken all those places away from us. We don't have those places to congregate anymore. And now you have the highest rate of suicide ever in recorded history, ever. What is going on? It has to be that. There's nothing else. I mean, the chemicals in the food, things like that, you can maybe add those on to the side. But the biggest part is that we don't have anybody to talk to anymore. Men don't have their own spaces anymore. So then you have creators and YouTubers like this lady who are saying, men need to talk and men need to go to therapy and men should talk to women and men should do. The answer is to give us our spaces back. Give these male spaces back where we can go and sit in a pub and talk to each other over a drink. Give the cigar space back where we can go sit down and light a cigar and talk to your friend that you don't get to see very often for an hour or 2 hours about what's going on in your life. That's how men decompress. We don't decompress by going to a therapist. I'm not knocking going to a therapist. I'm not saying that doesn't work. I'm just saying that we should have these spaces. And I bet you if we did, the amount of people that need to go to the therapist or the amount of men that need to go to the therapist will probably decrease, because we would have these areas to speak to our own friends about our own issues. Suicide's always going to be a thing. You're never going to get rid of it. No matter how many places you have to talk and all these other things, people are still going to take their lives, sadly and unfortunately. But the rise in it and how bad it has gotten is because of this push to invade the privacy of men and boys being able to have their own private time with other friends that they hang out with, and having these spaces and these places to blow off pressure, right? Jiu-jitsu, karate, going to the pub, going to smoke cigars and you know what I mean? These private places are slowly going away. They're still here, yes, but they're slowly starting to wither away, and they're being taken over by the feminist movement. The feminist movement either doesn't want us to have it, or if we have it, they are forcing women into those spaces, which I don't think that's correct. I don't think it's right. Just like I don't think it's right for men to take over a woman's sport or get into a woman's business or get into these women area only places where they hang out. Listen, there used to be knitting for women, right? There used to be like a place where women would go and they would sit down and they would go knit. I don't think that a man belongs in a woman's sitting and knitting area. That's a woman's space to talk about women things. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that we should be able to just go and take over like a woman's place where they go and sit down and talk about things. I'm saying both should have their own spaces. And that's the frustrating part, is that nobody wants to talk about that. We want to talk about therapists and men having a suicide issue and feeling depressed, but where are the spaces for us to go talk about it? So anyway, with that said, that's the end of my video. I just wanted to kind of go over the video and let you guys hear it for yourselves from the horse's mouth, because I could talk about it all day, but when you hear it from other men and you hear how they feel about things, it tends to change it a lot. I do understand that there's sadness. I do understand that suicide isn't a fixable issue by just giving all these places back. Like I said, people are still going to do it, but I think that we can minimize it and mitigate it by giving these spaces back to men where we can go and confide in each other. So I hope you guys liked the video. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.